I tried to
I'll
watch
give
our
it one
meeting 3
second.
times this weekend, but it said it was taped a couple of times, never
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be, at the time it's supposed to be.
Oh, on this? Yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we are. There we go. All right, so we're on. So, good evening. Today's Monday, July 14th at 7 o'clock. This is the advisory committee. We have a quorum. We have a distinguished former member in the audience this evening. I'd like to recognize Bob Shazam. Welcome, sir. All right, so this is a couple of, this is, believe it or not, the stuff that we're gonna talk about tonight is fiscal 14 business still within the last 2 months of the year, and then 2 weeks after the fiscal close, which is June 30th, we get to finally put to bed some of the items relating to year-end transfers. And so I'll just run down the list if you guys don't mind. Everyone had a copy of the agenda. I'll save the best for last. So the first thing is a $50 transfer request from advisory reserve to the veterans agent account. They ran over by like $40.65, and so they needed $50. Again, this is for veterans benefits. Tough to budget. They did the best they could, but ultimately were short and need just a tiny jolt at the end. So with that being said, we'll accept the motion to approve a transfer request in the amount of $50 from the Advisory Reserve Fund to Veterans Account 543-57700.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Was that pretty clear, small amount? We all know, I think, what they do, and it sort of ebbs and flows with the amount of people and the amount of time that people are taking advantage of benefits. So with that being said, there's been a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. I'll fill these out later. Second order of business is a transfer between accounts. Remember last time we did a number of these. We tried to do as many of them as we could. There always is a couple ones that lag. This one is for $362.39 being transferred from the Selectmen's account 122 to the Wiring Department account 244. And so I guess what happened here was we were short in wages, and Julie tries to clean these things up. The selectmen, as you know, have some money available for purchase of services and other stuff that's at their discretion. And so we're going to use $362.39 to make the wiring department whole. Okay, so with that, I will accept the motion to approve a transfer request from Selectmen's account 122-5200 to the Wiring Department 244-5200 in the amount of $362.39.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So let's get it. So as you know, let me actually do one more. There is another interdepartmental, this is sort of called a block request that you see here in the amount of $1,728. It's basically a bunch of these things that we just did in smaller amounts to different things that Julie put together. So the aggregate, as everyone knows, $1,728. $500 is from fire wages to fire expense. I'm sorry, from fire expense to fire wages. $72 from Board of Health expense to Board of Health wages. $1 from Minuteman Vocational to Board of Health wages. $466 from dispatch expense to dispatch wage. And $689 from police wage to dispatch wage. And this is, again, interdepartment. This isn't an advisory reserve transfer or anything of the like, but just 5 of the same similar between department transfers that we just did, right? So a simple motion can be accepted on approving the 5 transfer requests as described in the amount of $1,728.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I ask you a quick question though?
You may.
So interdepartmental,
When I said interdepartment, I didn't mean it in this case because some of them are not interdepartment.
okay, I wanted to make sure.
This wasn't interdepartment either. So they would, if this was interdepartment, they'd still need to have a request. This happens to be from selectmen to electrical, and some of these Minuteman vote, we needed $1 to make Board of Health wage. So
Right.
these are non-interdepartmental, but they're still transfers. Year-end transfers that can only be done in the last 2 months of a
Got
fiscal year.
it, so you can go,
You got it.
yeah, okay.
You got it. And these are the ones also that can't, and we'll get into this in a second, can't exceed, there's laws. So you can't, throughout the year, if you're the police, you can overspend on cruiser repair and underspend on tires because it's within the same non-wage police department. You have the liberty to do whatever you want through the year. The rules change within the last 2 months of a fiscal year. You can request to take money out of expense and put it into wage within your own department. Or you can say, like Julie does, to try to make everything balance, say, I need $1 here in this department and there's $1 in Minuteman Voc that we don't need, and so I can transfer. And you can only do those things within the last 2 months of the fiscal year by law. And they're subject to, remember we got caught up on a little bit of this the other meeting, there's that rule of not to exceed 3% of the annual budget of the department or 5,000, whichever is greater. Those rules apply to all of those type of transfers that again can only be done within the last 2 months of the year, or in this case, the 2 weeks following the end of the year, okay? So what we just did was some interdepartments, and now the next big thing that we need to talk about is our annual snow and ice deficit hunt, if you will. So, for some clarity, we entered the end of the year, I wrote some of these notes down on my phone, I'm just gonna pull them up. We entered the end of the year with a $261,812 deficit in snow and ice because of our harsh winter, the cost of materials, etc. So to back up even further than that, in our budget every year we have $180,000 in snow and ice. That we know for the past 5 to 10 years that we've tracked it has been insufficient. But there's a pitfall of increasing it, as the laws say that once you increase it, you can never decrease it. So what we've done is said, okay, well, we don't want to force ourselves into a bigger amount, even though I argued at the end, on the losing end of this year, was that we should start to try to get that lost on that one, that's fine. So what we say is instead of increasing the 180, that on our budget sheets every year, we, if you remember, put this $100,000 item. And what that does is, remember, when we start our budgeting process, we know formulaically within the boundaries of 2.5. So last year's tax base multiplied by 2.5%, or last year's total levy base multiplied by 2.5%, plus new growth, plus our estimates for excise taxes and the like, is a revenue number of X. Let's meet with all the departments and see how much of that revenue they want to spend. And also, let's see how much free cash we want to put into the budget and how much free cash we want to reserve for as a minimum. And then we also say, let's be safe and take $100,000 of that available numerator, if you will, or top line revenue number. And we're not going to spend it because we know we may need it to cover snow and ice deficits.
We go
Okay.
through that process every year?
Every year we've been doing that.
Set aside.
And that is our way of kind of putting 280 in the budget, but not being forced into never bringing down the 280.
Yep.
The 100 that we carve away, remember, is we're technically carving away levy capacity. And at the end of the day, the thinking is that if we don't need it, the assessors don't need to raise it, we don't need to tax for it, but we're not going to spend it in the current cycle because we're going to pretend it was that 100,000 of levy capacity is earmarked for something else. which was snow and ice. Does that make sense? So you have to always think about how we budget, because I'll get into the specifics in a second. How we budget really is, we have line of sight into 280K of snow and ice, okay? So, at the end of the day, on the 180,000, we had a total deficit of 260, which means that we spent 180 plus 260 is 440,000 bucks this winter on snow and ice. So we spent 440K, we budgeted 180, the difference is 260K that we didn't budget, we didn't have in the snow and ice budget that we need to cover. And so at the end of the year, Julie looks for what we call department givebacks, which is basically money that we set aside in expense for each department during our rigorous budget cycle that they didn't spend. If we don't do anything with the money they didn't spend, it rolls into free cash next year. But we try to scoop up as much of it as we can to cover any snow and ice deficit that we have. And so Julie looked long and hard, and remember, she is limited to this 3% or $5,000, whichever is greater, rule.
Is that per the town, per the state?
This is per the state.
Okay.
And so, being limited to this rule, she was able to find $154,223 of department givebacks. That is the amount that you see on this really, really long spreadsheet of 118. And then there's another $35,504 of unused advisory reserve money that we can also apply.
Was that 35?
514.
Okay.
So the sum of 118 plus 35,514 is $54,223 that Julie was able to find within the law, within the rules, to cover our $261,000 deficit. Okay? So that's what we're being asked to opine on today. So before we get to the final on that, I'll just expand further to say, anyone doing the math knows that we had a $261,000 deficit. We found 154. That leaves us with about 110,000 rounding up, 107,000 of deficit that we can't cover with transfers. Okay? So I want you guys to think about it any way you want. I'll tell you how I'm thinking about it, is that 107,000, number one, people could say, wow, that stinks. You guys we didn't cover that somehow. That 107 doesn't include this extra 100 that we kind of squirreled away as levy capacity that I was just talking to you about. So ironically enough, with that, we budgeted for it. So think about that scenario, okay? Second scenario is, remember how I told you that Julie was forced by these laws of the 3%? If she wasn't forced by these laws, there was $83,000 more of expense that she could have included in this transfer that she can't because of the law. So that would have covered it too. Okay, so I'm giving you two scenarios.
That goes back into free cash.
That will bolster free cash, certainly. So I want you to think about it in a couple different ways. Everyone can think about it how they want, but I look at these situations and I say, how could we have done a better job? And the answer is a couple. One is, this winter was unusual. Two is, if you look at it with this 100,000, we budgeted very appropriately for it. If you look at it within the confines of our total budget, there was another 83 that just by the laws of Massachusetts we're not able to use today, but we're going to be able to use tomorrow. And so we, depending on how you look at it, we did budget, even for such an extreme winter, we did not have, in my opinion, a shortfall in the way that we budgeted for fiscal year 14. And so said another way, if you take the 154,000 that we're gonna vote on tonight, and you add the 83,000 that we can't vote on tonight, but we know is more departmental givebacks, we had 240,000 of total expense that we budgeted for that didn't get spent. The total amount of turnbacks within all combined departments in the town for the fiscal year. And then if you ask, well, how does that compare to other years? I think last year it was $310,000. And the year before it was $270,000.
I was gonna say 283 or something.
Is that this number here? Is that these?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I can bring that.
Yeah, this is 305. 305, 276,
What's that? She can be the secretary.
305, 276, 276, 213, 354, right? And so it's pretty consistent. I mean, it has some ebbs and flows. You know, this year, someone could say, well, 240 is way off your 305. Yes, it is. You could also argue that we tightened the belt a little bit more, even though we kind of really didn't. Maybe people are learning that if I give money back, if I don't spend it, they're gonna hurt me with it, so I might as well spend it. I don't know, there's a lot of different things at play, but I don't see any major shifts in, you know, putting the clamps on departments and having that number turn into 240 from 310. I just don't think there's any real macro event that we can attribute it to. But it's
It's Mother
close.
Nature.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't,
And also to Bob's point, Bob and I was talked a little bit this morning. This is also, last year we were asked to cover $190,000 in snow and ice deficit last year. This year it's 260. Last year it was 190. Julie covered it all. This year it's 260. She's covering 150. And then you say, well, why could we cover 190 last year and not 150 this year? Which was my first question to Julie today. And the answer is, with the 3%,
you really asked her that question.
I did. Well,
You
I
must have been, you already knew the,
did.
you were interested in an argument to start
I was.
with.
I was. I was interested in another perspective, is how I like to think about it. But yes, the answer is that last year, the total givebacks of 305,000 were much more heavily distributed in bigger departments. The bigger departments you can scoop more from based on
3%
this
of a larger
3%.
number is more money.
This year, there was less in the bigger departments, more in some of the smaller departments where she had to leave money on the table, hence the 83,000, okay?
Yeah.
And so again, this is a long discussion to get everybody
Well,
comfortable with the
plus we
fact that I
could say
think we're...
also that we did do the budget better. Because there wasn't as much to scoop up from,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree. And I'll just give you a flavor. The selectmen voted on all this stuff Thursday night. I wasn't at the meeting, I didn't watch it, but what I did ask some folks what the overall sentiment of the meeting was. And I don't know, could be hearsay. Again, I did not watch, and I haven't confirmed this with anybody, but from bits and pieces I've gathered, that there was some discussion as to, oh, that stinks. Because now remember, what happens is, even though we're feeling good about everything, the mechanism is that we're still short, right? We're voting 154, and we needed 260. And so that $107,000 has to get raised in taxes for fiscal 15. So it eats into that. We worked really hard to get this and tout this available levy capacity that we just ate 100,000 of. But to your point, that 83 goes into free cash and can be spent next year. That I know the number, that the levy capacity that we used, or we were really trying to narrow in, I know that's gonna get wider because the assessors will formally know what new growth is, and valuations won't be flat like they assumed it to be, and there's a lot more things at play that we'll know in November than we know now. But some of the sentiment I heard was that, that boy, it stinks that we have to eat into levy capacity. Boy, it stinks that we had the opportunity to put an article on the warrant remember one of the things that we were toying around was putting an
Wait.
article on the warrant for fiscal 14 to apportion free cash to the snow and ice deficit.
Yeah.
We decided not to do it because our track record had showed that we could get pretty darn close without that avenue. I'm still glad that we didn't go that avenue, to be honest with you.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to give you the varying perspectives on how people are thinking about this. I happen to have done a lot of thinking, as you can tell, on this today, and I think it's fine.
Completely agree. I wouldn't change, and I wouldn't want anything to have changed from the way we went going down this road.
Yeah, I think,
No,
So the only way it could have gotten kind of more perfect, if you will, is if we had hit the 260.
yeah, that would have been perfect. That would have been perfect.
Okay. Because everything else I'm hearing was as anticipated.
Yeah, if we could have used that 83, then we would have had 30 grand flapping around. That would have been
Better than.
107.
But the alternative,
Yep.
going a even more aggressive route, I mean, that we were conservative in these estimates. We were still aggressive and, not aggressive, that's the wrong word, but, mindful of the budgets. And to me, the risk reward, there's a lot more negative on the other side had it gone against us.
Mhm.
so we
So-
start off in the hole.
We start off the levy capacity $100,000 worse than we thought that we would. Okay, but here's the alternative. If we had done this article on the warrant, we would have taken 100,000 of free cash, thrown it back into 14 to cover snow and ice. Even if we would have had to have estimated a number, which we don't know until today.
Right.
And if we had done that, then we couldn't have done 100,000 of levy capacity relief
That we did.
that we ended up doing.
That was-
And then we would have had that 100 available in the fall because the assessors wouldn't have needed to use this 100 that we squirreled away. They wouldn't have needed to use it because we covered it with free cash.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, if you think about the pocketbook of the citizen, it's the same.
Well, I think from the pocketbook of the citizen, we're paying our bills as late as we possibly can,
Right.
which is generally considered
To be
good
better.
financial practice.
For the net pocketbook of the citizen, it's the same. From a cash flow of the citizen, it is better, I think, because they always tell you a buck today is better than a buck tomorrow, right?
Sure.
So, anyway, I'm not being defensive about it, and actually, let's look at the best thing about this whole thing, in my opinion, is the following. Let me remember. It's, okay, I remember. So it's 400, it's the best thing that I forgot. We, we ended up spending 440 on snow and ice, we budgeted 180, we were over by 260. If you take the 154 that we're voting on tonight and you add the 83 that we're not able to vote on tonight, that is 237 of department givebacks that almost exactly equal the overages in snow and ice, which means on a net basis, we budgeted 2014 expense nearly perfectly across the board. Ebbs and flows in departments, and we're never going to get it all right within the many departments. But if you look at a total expense basis, we were the difference between 260 and 237, which is
Some people may say-
$43,000 off.
We lucked out.
23,000 off. Well, you can do the math, same math last year, same thing. Last year, our department givebacks were 305. We applied 192,000 to snow and ice, and so basically we were $113,000 off last year on a $20 million budget, mind you. This year, we were $23,000 off on a $20 million budget. You can't get much better than that. And so to any naysayer out there, I would ask them to budget a $20 million annual operating budget to within $23,000 and see how good they feel
No
about
kidding,
it.
and on something you can't predict.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Now, people will also say, like me, we shouldn't have 180 in snow and ice and then 260 of surplus in other departments. I think the committee should work in the future to try to bridge that. And what that means is finally attacking the 180 in snow and ice head on and starting to get that up to 200, 250, and then paying for it by turning the screws a little bit tighter on some of these departments, really looking at where the 237 came from this year. I understand 40 or something grand came out of health insurance, which is kind of a hit or miss type thing usually. But I think that's, we can feel good about the macro budget as a whole being off, 23 grand. But if we really want to get, and we really want to split hairs, we want to get better in the departments.
What happens, snow and ice, we bump it up to 250, we have a really light year,
Yep.
and we only spend 2
Goes back to free cash.
for the following year.
Yep.
Okay,
The only pitfall is if you start spending 200, 200, 200, you can never move that 250 in your budget down to 200.
okay.
You'll always lose $50,000 of use in your example until the next
next
year.
year, right,
Every
right, yep.
year. And that's why we've been sort of loath to move it from 180 to anything more, because that's why I wanted to do baby steps. If you remember, I wanted to take the savings from leasing a cruiser
Mm-hmm.
of 25 grand and making snow and ice 205 or 200,000 instead of 180. So I said, listen, it's a small step, but we know the 180 is bogus.
Yep.
And the selectmen at the time didn't have a desire to do that.
We were fine
Tell you
with
though, Randy, I'm looking at some of these and I don't get it.
Oh, you don't get where or how it's being,
How so high? Well, DPW.
yeah,
How do you
well,
sit on
we know,
2.5 in the library, 11.5, when we
sure,
had amendments for trucks and
yeah.
lights and,
No, it's-
We went round and round one night on the whole conservation, and I think the number was for $5,000.
Yeah,
And
no, here's a copy for you, audience member.
Yeah, no, I've got a copy.
Again, when we take a break, patting ourselves in the back, if we want to look at how we can get better, the things that we have traditionally not done on this committee, at least during my time, is investigate some of these things, like in a real way. And the reason that we don't, just to give you some advice, is we don't want to perpetuate the thinking that if I don't spend it, I'm gonna lose it. Because if you do that and you get departments fearful, they will spend everything you give them, even if they don't need it, because they'll be afraid of showing the trend line that they're giving money back. And so going on a witch hunt, which is useful to understand, but doing that to everybody will prevent this from happening again. You're penalizing people in some cases for being thoughtful and not falling into the trap in the corporate world, Brad, as you know, of spending to your budget because you think you're gonna lose it.
but then how do you justify saying we need to tighten up so that we can increase the snow and ice budget? You want to make everything better and closer, when you're off by 22,000 in one department and 12,000 in another, how do you
One of the things,
not make them,
It is a bigger budget, so the 22,000 is the same as $1,000 in a
Well, that's
smaller
true.
budget.
That's
It's-
true.
one of the things I did last year was, I looked at several budgets side by side, right? And I looked for, are there, in certain departments, consistently high amounts of returns? This kind of thing. Now, one of the things Randy said tonight is that the large departments overall didn't contribute as much money to the turnbacks as the smaller department. So there was a shift. So I think that kind of refutes the idea that people are spending money just to avoid giving it back because it's different departments. But I don't think you can penalize a department because this year they have $5,000 to give back, if in the past it's only been $500.
right?
And I think you gotta look at it at a year-over-year thing. With DPW, they had an issue with the
Compactors?
Not the compactors.
They're not
It was their
paying.
summer employees.
Oh,
Remember, they expected them to take vacations and they didn't?
Yep.
And, you know, that's where that money comes from, that kind of thing. But you can't budget for, you can't budget, we had this discussion at town meeting. You can't you can't plan for people not to take vacations that they've earned.
Yeah, you can't plan for people to be out sick or
right.
Yeah,
to leave their job when there's, right, so to that point, there's things that we know, there's patterns that we know, but there's problems with, there's budgetary limitations and constraints and problems that would be generated by using that knowledge to budget. Some of the times we're gonna have to budget more, and somebody on town meeting floor said, let's vote down DPW 20 grand because we know our history is that somebody leaves and it takes us 4 months to replace them. Well, that's great, but we can't budget that way.
No.
And some of these numbers that come are based off of us not refusing to budget that way. It's just a
Well,
natural.
you can't,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You can't. It's just that, but it's a natural byproduct of some of that type of stuff happening.
and now that you mention it, that's the reason the library had money to kick in, is they had an open slot for 4 or 5
Wages.
months.
Right. And we can't penalize them for that.
No. That-
Because the staffing budget, when we vote it and discuss it, should be the aggregate sum of everybody on the team, what they make, and it's a number.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
It's the only way you can budget for salaries. In the corporate world, we budget for vacancy credit, things like that. I just don't see us doing it without meeting every week at the end of the year like this, because departments will trigger their budget, because
Right.
that's the year that people didn't leave, right? In corporate world, it's easy to do that because you can overspend without a tribunal having to be formed and
Right.
approved, right? So,
Well, it really justifies the meeting, I hate to say it, but meeting every week from January to May, because you're taking the time to fine tune and understand all the nuances in every budget, to have the conversation we just had and feel good about it at the end,
yeah.
Because I'm just sitting here nodding because those are all the funny little things that just came up, but they make sense and they're all right,
Yeah, no, I don't know how we could have gotten any closer, even with an extraordinary winner.
I still think you have to vote on that last.
Yeah, I'm going to vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't voted on either. Was I moving on? Was someone else moving on? I was going to take a victory lap.
Yeah, come on.
All right, so with that, the first one is, as you know, we have 35,514 left in advisory reserve, and it's being transferred to snow and ice. I will accept the motion to approve that transfer.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
35. And the second is, this is a difficult motion. I think in the past what we've done is we've made a motion to approve the various transfers listed on the sheet dated June 9th, 2014.
July.
I mean, it's so small.
I know, I can barely.
July 9th,
Do you need your
2014.
readers?
Yeah, I do, I'm good. In the amount of 118,000, someone help me on that, I can't even see it.
118,709.
70904.
It's 4 cents. I think we can do that motion like that.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? All those in favor say aye.
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 Excellent. All right, so guys, with that, I think that concludes our transfer business for year end. Just look at the agenda. Veterans, we did wiring, we did the 1728, we did this, we did advisory reserve, and what else did Linda have on our agenda? I have it on my phone. But we can open it up for discussion. There's a couple things I want to mention too. I think there are 4 more positions. Transfer requests, end of your budget transfers, minutes. I don't have any minutes in the folder here. And then other business. So, we brainstormed a number of things that we might want to think about for next budget cycle, and that's stuff that we should continue to brainstorm before we sort of formally kick off fiscal year 16, believe it or not. Is there anything anybody's been thinking about in terms of some, while it's fresh in our mind, any takeaways that we would want to jot down so that we don't forget before we sort of take a little bit of time, well-deserved time off here in the summer?
A couple things. One, while I do agree though, the weekly meeting and going through line by line, there is so much in the complete aggregate. There is an awful lot of time spent on that in comparison to the the purchases or potential purchases, the capital projects. So in just trying to get a better handle on that, which obviously goes to help with or receiving help from capital planning in a timely manner, but just looking at that and really trying to just spend more time on that, seeing how that can, it seems as though we spend a meeting and a half, or maybe two, on that, relative to the
real stuff.
Yeah. So that's one, and then I think also just coming on the heels of just before the town meeting, the idea of I thought it was great that we all got together with the assessors last year prior. So I think we should do that again.
Yep.
And even have a there was a comment made by the selectmen on meeting with them prior to kicking off the budget, so as to maybe potentially avoid the issues, concerns that took place as we were coming down the home stretch this year.
Right.
So just a little bit of pre-planning before we get fully engrossed on the weekly activities.
Agreed. The assessor meeting we always have, but I think we had one earlier, later actually, this past year than we've had before. We normally meet with them in the beginning in January and we discuss new growth, but we involved them more and we had a...
Yeah, I got the sense that something was different this last...
I think that last meeting, because of the circumstances surrounding certain things at town meeting, I think we were aligned better with them and communicated more regularly towards the home stretch. So if that, and I think that works, I think we should...
Well, you had a meeting between the certification of free cash and the setting of the tax rate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, which is in the October to
Yeah.
December period.
Yeah, and then,
Then we met with them in January,
right,
first off the bat.
right. And that was different from prior years because they weren't transferring anything from their reserves.
Abatement.
Right.
Their abatement
But
reserves.
didn't they come back in right in April or?
Yeah, they
Didn't they
did.
came back in for something?
Something was different. They knew something, we wanted them,
Well, we talked to them about the
I
presentation.
think they came in and explained to us, they wanted to make sure we understood why the
How they
growth
estimated.
estimate
Right.
wasn't changing. That the prices, although they're seeing prices change in the marketplace, it's not reflected in the data that they were using.
And they also wanted to explain to us, for Brad's presentation, they needed to estimate the tax rate, and they wanted
That's
to
right.
explain
Yes.
to us why,
Yeah.
how they estimated it using a flat valuation approach, and that was more formal this year than it has been in the past.
It was helpful.
I think it was too. And listen, we're partners in crime with them. It's
Wasn't there
a
also
collaborative.
wasn't there a transfer of money because the solar, there was something with the solar?
Oh, yeah, they wanted to tell us that with the court
okay.
case that was on the horizon,
Yeah.
that there would be some nuance with,
Well, we'd be able to
Solar.
recognize revenue even though we couldn't forecast it.
right. Right, and they gave that to us. They gave us the good news on that later in the game, but it was
Right.
just an FYI because we couldn't apply it to anything.
Right.
But we'll realize it in that.
This coming year, that will be another windfall. And so I think that showed that we've forged a partnership with the assessors that we haven't seen, that we've sort of built up over time. But I think this year was the sort of buildup of a bunch of years of effort to try to get that kind of dialogue, and I think that's great.
How about you? Anything you're
Well, I
looking to
said-
see moving forward?
Yeah, I said it the same thing you said as number one. I said it last time we met was, I don't know if we were, we were walking out or whatever, but I think last year, a lot of times we would get to real meaty stuff at 10:30 at night because we had just spent 3.5 hours, $100 nickel and dime supplies and travel, all the little stuff.
Yeah.
And I had made the comment then, and I made it a few weeks ago, that we need to have a big ticket item mentality. Like we should have spent, we could spend a meeting, to your point, just talking about the philosophy of free cash, or borrow versus, or lease versus borrow versus cash. The 180 snow and ice, what's the merits, what's the pitfalls? Like, there's a lot of that big ticket stuff that we just didn't get to because there's so many departments to go through, and some of these dollars are small. And we spent some meetings having the departments give a few minutes on what they do, and by now we should all pretty much know what they do. And so I think it was maybe some time better spent. I think that was my big one. And then my second one would be, I think we turned a corner, at least in terms of what I viewed as our sophistication of thinking about finances, in terms of we spent a lot of time talking about buy versus lease and the cash flow implications of that, and levy capacity and leaving, free cash utilization. We spent a lot more time on that this budget cycle than we ever have. And ultimately, the reason I was so pleased with the budget that we got approved at town meeting was it was very balanced in terms of old versus new thinking, right? We didn't immediately flip the switch to this, we're gonna borrow for everything. We ultimately, with the fire truck, we dipped our toes into inside a 2.5 borrowing, which we haven't done ever, I don't think.
Yeah, haven't had
That's
capacity.
big for us,
Yeah.
right? Tax relief, which we've never done. The list goes on and on, right? So I think we should not let those kind of ideas die, even though they were very, I think, shocking and unnerving for some. If it's the right thing to do, it shouldn't always be, we've never done it before, this is how we always do it. If it's the right, financial decision for the town, we should think about it, even if it requires a lot of thought and hand-holding to get people comfortable. And I think this OPEB thing, we need to spend some time with, so I don't think it's gonna go away. Do you have anything, I want to go around, but did you, you were a part, Bob, just like all of us, now you're a private citizen, congratulations, but John Q. taxpayer?
Yeah, I think we did a good job in terms of freeing up levy capacity. I think we did a good job in terms of allocating free cash to capital projects. I think now that we're below levy capacity, there might be a lot of pressure to start spending again. And I hope we can see through that and resist it. I think the level of our free cash is a decision we should be re-examining again. I'm eager to see what the free cash position will be October, when we get that in October and stuff like that. But So, you know, I think we accomplished a lot in the past couple of years, but I don't think you can say, let's just keep on doing what we were doing, because you're gonna this creates new problems and new pressures, and you've got to be able to respond to, recognize them and respond to them.
I would amend my comments earlier on patting ourselves on the back just slightly with, you know, we were talking about how well we did with expense and the whole thing. I'm not taking anything away from that. I would be remiss if I said that we can't turn the page yet on 14 until we get the free cash number in October. Because if that thing slides in at 150K, to Bob's point, that creates a lot more challenges. Now, we know we just got 83, okay? Our target, remember, was 250, okay? We're halfway to the target, and we already know that today. We know that there's some assessor money, even though that's not going to be included in free cash, that sort of would replace its impact in the budget. It's sort of found money, right, that we're actually going to get classified as revenue. And there's always this Chapter 90, you know, we could be on the low end of the Chapter 90 float this year. Who knows?
Yeah, you got a gift last year.
Yep.
We could pay for that.
So
gift.
there's so many different things. I'd be shocked, you know, but I will warn people that I think the days of $1.2 million replenishment of free cash are over. What's going to happen is we're going to replenish at, I'll throw out a number that I feel pretty good about, $500,000 to $600,000. Okay? Which is $300,000 above our 250 target, but it's $650,000 over the year before. And people who are not aware of what we've done are gonna say, oh my God, we had $1.2 million of free cash last year, and now we just got certified at 600 grand, like the sky's falling. And it's not the case. It was by design. We just have to be aware of that. Would you agree?
No, we do. And you know, if I'll be the first to say it, if it comes in much below, you know, 450 or 500, I think we got to revisit the 250 target. And I was,
Right.
I think I was a stronger proponent of the 250 as anybody.
Yeah.
But you know, we've been, it appears we've been, you know, successful in managing the growth of the budget and expenses, and we have to recognize that. You know, this is the first year we've really seen that.
Yep.
That kind of control.
And remember, Larry Delaney's argument on our 250 target was that the state guideline was 5% of the budget, which in our case was 500 grand. And we told him, listen, Larry, if we target 250, that our track record over the past 8 years is that our margin of error is always 250 to 400K.
Right.
And so targeting 250 gets you guaranteed over 500. And that's our thinking. No one will trust our judgment.
Right.
To your point. So that's why my range, which I wouldn't be surprised if we get, is somewhere between, I think it said 500 and 600, right? If we do go below 500, then maybe the tide's turned a little bit and we have to sort of adjust next year. The 250 target becomes 300.
Well, and that's
350,
maybe
something
when
like
we
that.
start thinking about raising the snow and ice, so
Right.
that we can use more of what rolls back into free cash.
Yeah, right now, I tell you, right now, it's a great point. Right now, the snow and ice has prevented free cash from even being bigger than it otherwise would have, which has been a fine thing because it's $1.2 million. I don't think we want it being bigger.
No.
But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's something, the snow and ice should be increased in the next 16 months.
And I'll be honest, for the naysayers that are disappointed that we couldn't cover it all and we had to dip into levy capacity, those people should be the first people in line next year when we promote an agenda to abandon the 180 to something more reasonable, right? You can't be on both sides of that nickel. Another thing I was thinking about is just in terms of revenue and budget sheets and stuff, one of the things we really found useful at the end of the day was the information that Chief Alfano put together on the fleet and like repairs per vehicle and stuff like that. And I think, just not to lose sight of stuff, but one of the comments that was made, and I think a bunch of people thought it was a good idea, was to extend that kind of mentality and thinking to the DPW fleet and to the fire department as well. And so I don't know if that has support, but those are things that if you kind of don't pick up off the ground, they get kind of lost in the shuffle, and I suspect it's laying on the ground right now until we formally, ask Don to think about that for the next cycle, right? I'll put that on the list. Fleet management, I'll just put it as, repairs per vehicle. I think was the thing, right, Bob? You were spearheading a lot of that.
It was track maintenance expenses by mileage.
Yeah.
And the idea is just that when budget time comes around, this gives you some perspective on how various vehicles have been performing and treated, and helps put some information behind opinions on both sides.
Connie or Stash, do you have anything on your mind that you wanted to add after hearing all this?
I agree with the OPEB thing.
Okay, I actually forgot to write that down.
Yeah.
Now, did we decide that there was going to be some sort of a committee formed, and I think that ball's in the selectmen's court, correct? But we should, that might be something laying on the ground too.
The other thing you may want to consider as a committee is getting the school department to be forthcoming on its OPEB plans.
Well,
Theirs are in the tens of millions of dollars.
I would, when that went further, I want them to be more clear about their OPEB plans and on their expansion plans, or space needs plans, which leads me, not that you, maybe you want to go first, but one of the elephants in the room for me is, someone asked me the other day what the next big thing down the pike was for the town, since we were feeling so good about the budget. And I said, for me, it's still keeping the schools in check, because we can't go through another several cycles where 550 grand of our $650,000 worth of new money every year gets scooped up in the schools. It's just not sustainable. And I think someone asked me about a new school, and I said, I don't think we're going to have I don't think our issue is a new school. It's going to be our share of a high school expansion effort.
Two high schools.
Yeah. Technical and.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, Minuteman, yeah, and I did mention that as a second one, but.
Yeah.
And so it leads me to a good point. So Bob, you are still on the space needs.
I am.
When you went on, the request at the time was someone from advisory, right?
A representative of the advisory committee.
Okay, now does that, not that we are
so
displeased
you don't
with you
have to
still
be a
being.
member.
I
You could
asked
be-
Don Lowe that question.
You can
Okay.
be a representative of the
I
advisory.
do not have to be a member.
Do we have to formally vote you as our representative? Is that
I
something that helps?
think really you've already done that.
Okay.
But given that my status has changed, if you were to reaffirm it,
Okay,
that might be good. Although I don't know if you can do that if it wasn't an agenda item.
that's true. So we'll put that on a future agenda item.
Thank you for remembering.
And Connie, I'm sorry.
The thing that bothered me last year was when we did appropriate money, or the town chose to pass an amendment for X amount of dollars to someone or departments, and it didn't get spent. I would love to be able to touch base with,
Oh, this is the Bill Cleary thing?
yeah,
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
direct. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I don't have a filter.
Well,
No, it's fine,
Yeah,
but
no.
I mean,
Have to work tomorrow.
at work, I'm trying.
All right, so I think it's a good point. I
you
think
could
we
just
should.
ask Bill Cleary to come back in at
I
the
think we
next
should.
meeting
Yeah, that would
and tell
be
you
so
what's
bad.
happened during the summer.
Yep, Bill Cleary, summer.
You know, we did the
improvements,
same
yeah.
thing with DPW when they were supposed to do the old firehouse. Did they use that money? Did
Yeah.
they? They did?
So,
Somebody
yeah,
else. Was there anybody else who did?
Well, there's the Houghton Building and the old fire station, so
That's
which one,
probably-
yeah. The whole, that first 7 grand got used
Okay.
in its entirety for what we asked to be done.
Some great,
And that's
great looking hardy
what
board
it
going up on the Houghton building.
That's not hardy board,
That's
yeah.
not as wood.
Did you know
It's
that?
pink.
That's scraped,
It's
they
scraped in the
decided
paint.
to.
That's called sarcasm.
However, I will say that I think the budget, the cost was like 25 or 30 grand to scrape and paint. And we had allocated 90 for Hardyburg, so
So
I
that
still-
money-
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, but
It's
it's,
the
So
same
that-
until we
It's every
rearrange it.
5
Just make a
years.
note to go after
After
that
the
extra
60
money.
grand.
Oh, yeah.
That's
For the
just
next
made a
budget.
point. Yep, we definitely have to do
It's not
our
for 16 though,
normal.
right, Bob? That wouldn't hit for,
Yep, and we would be able to
We
use
could-
it for 16.
It's for 60?
But we have to have a like article,
yeah.
and we'd have to have the article
I
worded
don't think
to.
so. I think it's cash. I don't think you have to do that. For borrowing, yes, but not for cash.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
we did
it's-
do free cash for that.
yeah.
Right?
So the restriction
Yeah.
is it needs to be a similar product, like a,
I don't think
For
for
a
Not
a
borrow,
borrow.
it does.
For a
oh,
borrow.
I'm sorry.
If we
Right.
borrowed
After
for
that.
something, we could
Okay.
reallocate the funds to a similar project with town meeting approval. Since we gave the 90 grand out of free cash, and we're only gonna use 40, say, that 50 grand, I don't think it needs a town meeting vote, and I don't.
But it would
I think
sit there, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think all they need to do is,
Harold needs to say, I don't need
I
it,
don't
and
need
it
it.
goes back into the kitty.
it goes back to the kitty, and after June 30th, it goes into free cash, but you'll need it before then, before
Right.
next June 30th. And did I read in the paper where the Five Shire Dam came in under 150?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
there's
and then we're starting
100,000
to-
there.
Yep, so Houghton 50K and Five Shire. So both of these hard-earned allocations of dollars should come back.
And I don't know
to
what
us.
Sampson Road came in at.
Well, judging by how long they've been there, I'm not sure they're done yet.
Oh, no,
It's a
Has
well,
that taken longer than normal?
well,
You know?
they forecast closure for 4 weeks.
Oh, I didn't know. I just
That's a-
kept on going to the dump and seeing it closed and thinking, oh,
No, there's a sign elsewhere that says it's gonna be closed for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So
I actually stopped by and took a look at that.
It's pretty bad, right? Yeah.
It's deep.
it's a big
Yeah.
hole, and it's steep, that's
Yeah.
the other thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Did Harold know that he was gonna do it that way, or wasn't he talking about sleeving that one too?
No,
That was
no,
always gonna be a dig and
he-
redo?
He took me during one of my
That's when you
guided
crawled
tours.
in?
I got on my hands and knees and I looked through that. You couldn't even see all the way through it. There's no way you could fit a sleeve through there. And the big issue, and he had the special requirements. The reason it was so expensive is that the sides of Sampson Road are so steep, and there are telephone poles in there.
Hmm.
So whoever does it has to be good at making sure that when you build those sides back up, that those telephone poles are truly firmly in place.
Hmm.
You can't just, you can't just throw sand up there, because the whole thing will just fall down after the first rain.
Interesting.
So that's actually a fairly tough culvert to do, because of the narrowness of it.
Okay, the last thing on my list is, we need to, at some point in time, think about reorganizing. And I apologize, this was on my list for the beginning of this meeting, and I guess I've been presumptuous this whole time to think that, that I was the acting chairman. But since the meeting is over, that was a presumption on my part. So we need, number one, to think about, we really got to beat the bushes on our 2 open spots today. That's been in the paper for a while. We've gotten some emails from folks saying who's leaving, so that tells me that a lot of people don't even really know still. And then we need to think about who's going to be the chairman for the next year. So, and I don't think we should do it tonight, unless you guys want to, but.
Where are you gonna go? At what point?
Well, I said that I would kind of, if I wasn't here right now, we wouldn't be able to have a quorum.
I know.
So,
No, I don't mean that.
so,
I mean-
yeah, but you had said to me before the meeting that, I had said that I would stay on sort of through this little transition period till we got a couple of new bodies in, and then allow you to fill my spot. And then I preferred not to go through another budget cycle. So that, I still haven't wavered from that. But, we sit here today, and I don't think Linda would have sent me something if the nominating committee was considering anybody. I don't think I've heard anything. And various people had some people in mind, and they've all fallen through so far, including
You were reaffirmed, right?
I was, yes, I got sworn in.
Congratulations, thank you for re-upping. So, we can reorganize anytime. I'd be happy to stay on. I'd be happy to serve as the chairman through the period of time where I'm still here, or if we think it's better to have a new chairman sort of learn some of the ropes during that time, I'm indifferent to it. But I acted as it tonight, and I apologize for not having that be our first point of business.
This is my feelings. I would nominate you after Randy left, but I'm not sure if you should now, while he's still here.
Yeah, it's 6 dozen one
It's
half.
kinda how you
How would
feel.
you,
Second that.
how would you feel
It's kinda
about
like
doing
You two
it?
got iron it out, and
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be I think I would probably prefer you being here. I'm not opposed to taking over, absolutely, I'd be happy to.
But do you want the first time that you're the chairman of the committee to be when I'm not here?
Yeah, not necessarily.
Right, so then we probably want to do it sooner rather than later.
But there's,
Oh,
And I think if it's not going to be you, someone should have, whoever it is, should have the opportunity to establish their relationship with Don and
Sure.
Linda and other people when there's not a lot at stake, and establish the relationships during the summer months. As
Before-
yeah, and
opposed
then
to-
you're still available.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's be
for the
very clear
questions.
too.
You'll always be available?
Let's be very clear.
yes, yeah.
Bob said it,
Yeah.
he reaffirmed it today, he means it, I mean it. We're not retiring together to Vermont.
There's no background going on.
No, there is no. We are, I can see myself attending meetings and,
Yeah.
Are we gonna start calling you Dave?
no.
I'm
no.
not
I work for the
I'm not
Citizens
going
Group.
away to the committee. I'm doing something else on Tuesday nights.
Yeah,
That's why I'm not on the committee anymore.
yeah.
It's
And
not,
the same with me. I kind of hooked on with doing some work with the trust, looking over some of the stuff for the center town project and, some of the stuff that I haven't had a lot of time to do. So I'm not, again, either sunsetting complete involvement. It's just something new. So we're always going to be
and
around.
we're especially not going to Vermont together.
Having on speed dial.
Oh, believe
Yeah, yeah. All right, so why don't we do this? We don't have to do anything tonight. I say what we do is we take some time this summer, or maybe, you're gonna start with Ernest tomorrow? Because let's just make it official now then, if we do that.
Yeah.
Can you vote without having reorganization on the agenda?
That's another thing that I don't know. I don't think we can. The open meeting law states that the agenda has to be posted and there's events
Yeah.
that are considered
I don't think we
emergency
can.
events, but I don't know if that reorganization would be an
No.
emergency. So what I would say is this.
You could meet for 15 minutes next week or something like that.
If it was important to you, or we can, you can make all, not to say you're gonna be making a ton of calls in the next couple months. I would say we'd meet again, probably the end of August into
Yeah.
the 1st of September.
Or if we have anyone new coming aboard
That's right.
before then, we can do with that as well.
But in this protocol, we would be informed that, hey, the nominating committee has selected person X for you, and then, good luck. And then we would either want to wait until September, or we'd have a meeting right away to introduce that person, is sort of how we want to do it. I think people's schedules sort of, from here until the end of the summer, get a little bit murky. I know mine does, but I'm happy to do whatever anybody wants to do. I think
Yeah.
what we should do is we should all look at our calendars. When Linda gets back from her vacation, we'll find another spot on the calendar between now and Labor Day.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, and then we'll do
Sounds good.
formal reorg, then I'll have Linda post it, I'll have Linda maybe get Cleary in here and do some of these other, as many of these other things. We'll actually have a formal meeting for it, we'll do a reorganization, we'll get an update on our candidate search, and we'll start that way. Does that
We're
sound
gonna
good?
see bids going out for, on Florence Sawyer, I think, on the website.
Boiler probably?
You know what, I didn't get,
I don't know.
I was at the hospital this morning, and I'm sitting with my phone looking at the Neshoba website, and just as I'm reading it, it says, you have no website, you're offline. And so I didn't bother with it, but I briefly saw some bids, they're taking
Got the
bids
grant,
for something.
right? The grant.
I don't know, I didn't get the,
Grant for what?
I need to
For,
look.
the boiler, evaluation, the, is it
Oh, the
MSBA?
money that we gave them?
Yeah,
Didn't we give them money for that too?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought he had someone, oh,
The picture, was it?
I thought that was supposed to happen.
But it was like we didn't know at that time whether or not we
What
were
was
gonna
gonna
get
be
the
the
grant.
best? Oh.
And I don't know how much.
And not only the grant, but he wasn't sure, he needed to have people come back in and tell him what's the best thing to do.
Yeah, that's what the money was for,
Yeah,
was that study.
right, so I'm wondering if he did the study and he's now looking for
I
good.
don't know, I thought the study was gonna take longer than the summer. But,
Don't know.
I didn't get that. I didn't get that impression, only
there was-
because I thought they were gonna be able to be in position to pull the trigger so we didn't go through another heating season on the present.
my recollection of the study was that we were worried about overloading him during the summer, and then we said, oh, but this study you can do this study while kids are in school. So my recollection is we sort of expected the study to go on into September, October, November, with the idea that being next summer is when the physical changeover would occur.
Well, I'll have him come in.
Yeah,
If he's
that's
available, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea. In the meantime, if I can have somebody just have him send an email to Linda so she can forward.
Oh,
it,
it's
just
for the
tell her
roof.
she's
Oh, I'm
supposed to do.
sorry.
The high
It's
school
for the
roof.
Send
roof.
it to,
The high
I'm the
school
one of the
roof.
guys that took him to the woodshed on it, so. I'd like
And
to
then
see
the
what
other
they
is
can do.
for
Yeah.
phase 2 of the exterior weather seal.
Have Bill send us an
Hail.
email, just update us on what the summer activities are in terms of
Yeah.
that outstanding
Including
stuff.
the heating,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah,
It'd
already
be
working.
like if he
All
could
right, so that's not for the boiler. then.
have that sooner than later, and Linda could forward to us, just as opposed to us having to wait
Yeah, until
until
September.
September. It'd be nice to see where he is exactly right now, even if he's, good. He should be able to provide a status update,
Yeah.
even if there's a project not starting 2 weeks from now, but.
Okay, so next meeting, we're gonna get Linda to solicit, well, I mean, maybe, does everyone have an idea what their phones are? Or what their calendar looks like now?
For the end of August or for next?
Linda just texted me, did everyone do okay? She's always interested, she's on vacation, she's always,
You should tell her it fell apart without her.
Yeah,
my August, the last week of August, school starts, so, I mean, no matter what's happening, most of us are gonna be around, right?
yeah.
The 25th to 29th, I mean, do you guys wanna is the 26th, Tuesday night, the 26th of August, a doable thing for
I
everybody?
think we could probably shoot
I'm
for
almost
that.
sure.
When does school start, that Wednesday or the
The
Thursday?
Wednesday,
It starts 27th,
yep.
so that's the night before the first day of school,
That'd be
that's not
okay.
gonna,
We'll
well,
make it okay.
that might not be good though, is what I'm saying.
Well, how about the
you know.
week before, the
What,
19th?
you gonna be stuck in
I
Maine? or
can't do the 19th.
Okay, how about the week after, September? Oh, that's, never mind,
That's Labor Day, is the
Labor Day.
next day after. That's why I'm thinking the 26th. Or we could do the 25th, like tonight's on Monday night.
Tonight's Monday.
Yeah, I can do Mondays. Mondays are good.
Monday's good.
25th, Brad?
Sure.
I'll have Linda throw it out there, but let's just
I
at
think
least
it
give
would
her an
be
idea. Yeah,
I haven't put my life on this phone yet. I need
Yeah.
to. My husband really wants me to. It's on the calendar, you know, I'm old school.
August 25th.
But I can check it and get right back to you. August 25th.
All right, so before we adjourn, the only other thing I'd like to mention is, again, I want to publicly thank Bob for all of his work on the committee and for his tireless effort on behalf of the town. His term came to an end on the 30th of June. He's here tonight because evidently he has nothing to do on Monday nights.
Switch to Mondays, looking him back.
But I think we've all reached out to Bob in our own way separately, and I know we all are very grateful, Bob, for your
Thank you.
Absolutely.
dedication and effort.
Very nice.
Given the
Huge
time.
asset
It
to the
was
town.
fun.
It was certainly my honor and pleasure to serve with you on all of your years.
It's not what you said at the time.
No, it's not. No, we're on TV, so.
That's not what I'm gonna say to you until
And
you're
I would ask Bob that we typically have done something a little bit more formal in terms of some snacks and an open house, if you will. And maybe we would like to do that if you would consider attending. You called in sick for your last meeting, if you recall, so.
Yes.
We had pizza and snacks here that night. But anyway, so give us that honor to recognize your service, and maybe we'll do that in this August meeting, as well as a little bit of business, okay? So thank you again on behalf of
Yeah, thank
the
you.
great town of Bolton.
And thank you for being willing to stay on for the space needs.
Oh,
Well, we didn't ask you if you were willing to stay on, we just procedurally said, how could we do it? But I think you want to stay on, right?
I want to stay on this.
Excellent,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really great.
That's getting interesting too.
Very good. So any other business? With that, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. I just forgot, remember that I was supposed to